Hi everyone, I'm really excited to host Harsh and Dimitar from Reope. I have been following Reope's work for a long time, and if you don't know, you might have definitely come across Harvard's video about Reope, and it was very interesting marketing. So, first of all, thanks a lot, both of you, for your time to do this.
Thanks, Mayur. It's
Yeah,
actually quite
it's
exciting to be here.
it's definitely exciting to be here, and it's always a pleasure to talk about some of the things that we do.
Awesome,
So,
can't wait. So, first, I would like to know a bit about your tech journey in AEC. So, Harsh, first, can you share some highlights of your journey till date from your career, school?
yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty early in my career, so it's going to be pretty short, the journey. But I, like most people in the space, went to school originally to study architecture. But the university I actually went to study architecture and had a very strong, I guess, culture of computer science. This was a college in the States. And basically, looking around, there was computer science in every field. There was computational finance, there was computational biology, and there was also computational design. And so that is how I kind of got into the niche that we're all in now. And essentially, I started taking programming classes and just trying to explore this new skill set and this new way of doing things. And over time, I realized that this is definitely what I want to do long term for my job and my career. And so when I was actually graduating and looking for work, I ended up looking just for the jobs in this space. And because of a lot of luck and sheer coincidence, I ended up working for NBBJ in Seattle. Nate Holland, who is running their computation team, interviewed me and seemed to find me good enough to work for them. So I went there, and I was with those guys for about 2 years. And it was a lot of kind of working on building projects, automating workflows, finding new value for clients on those projects through programming, hacking, kind of making simulations and all kinds of different, I guess, augmentations to the design process. And over time, after at NBBJ, I realized that actually, you know what, I want to do this full time. I want to not design buildings, and I want to actually be a programmer or a tech person within AEC full time. And that was around the time when I saw Hovar's now infamous video. And I mean, it was on a complete whim that I decided to just write Hovar a message. I didn't actually give him a call. I think maybe some people would have, as he said at the end. But I wrote him an email, and one thing led to another, and I ended up moving from Seattle to Oslo, where I am now. And so here at Reope, I have been here for about a year now, and it's been a lot of different kinds of work, I would say. And I'm sure Dimitar will talk more about that as well. But it's been spanning the gamut from consulting for different architecture firms and making sure that they have good workflows and good tools, building custom tools for them, consulting with large building owners and helping them actually understand what it means to be digitally informed as an owner. How do you minimize risk? How do you make sure that you are getting correct deliveries from your design teams? And how an asset is not just physical but also digital. And it's also been building a bunch of internal products that we are working on, which I'm sure we'll show later as well. So it's been a good mix for the last year for me between software development, business development, sales, marketing. Kind of living that AEC tech startup life.
That's great. So much difference in like short period of time. You like manage different roles. That's incredible. What about you, Dimitar?
Well, I don't think I really set up to start in a tech focused education or a tech focused field, but I guess just things naturally progressed in that direction, and I was definitely drawn to it. Uh, I started studying in Denmark, let's say a few years ago. It's been quite a few years ago.
Mhm.
And after graduating there, a friend of mine who actually studied in the UK went a few months earlier to Singapore. And he joined this lovely studio called KTP Consultants, structural consultancy there. And that was 2011, late 2011, and it was just around the time when Singapore was going through this transition from CAD-based workflow to BI-based workflows. And he told me, hey, it's a great environment. There's a lot of big dynamic projects that we won't really have the chance to. I mean, we're just starting our careers, and we don't really have a chance to work on these kinds of projects in Europe. And I was all up for it. Just fresh out of college, I joined KDB Consultants. I stayed with them for 4 years, and mostly dealing with the structural part of the building design. And we all of the young, let's say, uh, all of the new batch of engineers and draftsmen and architects, we really quickly realized that the only way to tackle these huge projects efficiently is to try to automate as much of the workflow, and not just to make our lives easier, but just to reduce the chance for mistakes, just to increase our competitiveness, because it's a very competitive market. You have to remember that as well. And one thing led to another. We started poking around with Excel, of course, then Python. Then a few years after that, Dynamo started entering the scene around 2013, 2014. And it was for people who had a more architectural background. You had Rhino and Grasshopper, but for us, which we were mostly on the Autodesk side of things, the visual programming that Dynamo introduced us to, really broadened our horizons. And I got to meet some great people around the community, like the Bad Monkeys team. Kudos to them. Amazing self-thought Dynamo geniuses like Andreas Diekman, like Julien Benoit, like and many more, of course, Conrad Sobon, who really, we were facing similar problems daily, and we figured out, hey, the fastest way to learn this, and the fastest way to get better, and it's really just to share it. Share the kinds of problems that you had, and share the kinds of solutions that you came up with. And then we were like, hey, we're solving the same problems over and over. Why don't we start releasing some packages? And then we started releasing some packages, and they gained a lot of popularity. And one thing led to another. A few companies later, I now for about a year as well, I've been working with Reope exclusively. We've been trying to solve all kinds of fun, entertaining, frustrating problems that our clients have, and it's been wonderful. Um,
That-
living the
that's
dream.
great. It's interesting that you mentioned Bad Monkey. So I interviewed Adam Schither, who was
Yeah,
part of Bad Monkey, and looks like all the Bad Monkey alumni now branched out to form their own
yeah.
companies and initiatives.
Adam's a great person. We're so he's got a new company called Automation now, and we are literally working together uh, on projects. Because there's always the potential to help each other and collaborate. And even now, we've got a few Dynamo focused projects that I'm helping them with, because I would say his focus has moved way beyond Dynamo and Revit now. Is doing wonderful things with Beam Beats and all of these AI focused projects. I'm sure he talked about and mentioned.
Yeah. So one question I have is, you both worked in like design firms, structure and architecture. So what is the biggest difference in culture and process you find in now you're moved into tech focused firm?
Do you want to go first, Harsh?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit difficult to answer that specifically, because even the kind of company that, at least for me, changed was quite drastic. And BBJ is about 1,000-person company that's been around for almost 100 years. Reope is a 10-person company that's been around for 3 or 4 years. And so the nature of the organization is very different. And even though one is tech, one is architecture, the biggest differences that I see at Reop is how agile we are, how fast we can actually make decisions and do things. I think my fourth day in the job, I told Howard that we needed to buy some piece of software like Notion, and the next day we had it. That would not happen at a big company that easily. And so the speed of decision making, I would say, is the biggest piece. And because we're also a small company and we're all pretty like-minded people, we kind of get each other pretty easily, and so the kind of camaraderie, the culture is quite strong as well because of that. We all know the struggles that the other person faced in their past lives before they joined Rio.
Got it.
Yeah. If I could add, yeah, definitely, scale wise, there's big differences, but you know, daily work, I would say there's definitely a lot of similarities. You still got deadlines that you got to meet. You still have a lot of client meetings that you have to discuss what the project has to look like. You still have a lot of coordination that you have to do between the different parties involved. So I think it's pretty natural that a lot of individuals from the building design AEC community have naturally moved to a more tech focused field. Um, so I wouldn't say we're the trendsetters. More likely we're just part of the the natural flow of things. The two fields are getting more and more intertwined, and tech is entering our lives in all kinds of weird ways more and more nowadays.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. So we have like computational design, and then we have like computational designers who learn software development and are like professional programmers. So if let's say a firm wants to do a plugin or a software development, they could either outsource and hire a proper software engineering team, or they can hire an AEC focus tools development team. So like one of the thing I see like you guys like bring value is like understanding the domain, understanding the problem space very well, and developing tools around it. But like people who are very early in the career stage, they're at this pivotal point whether we should understand the field more, understand the problem space more before we convert into software development, or we directly transition into it. So what's your thoughts or piece of advice on that?
Yeah, Dimitar, do you want to take that one since you've had more time to think about that?
Well, it's experience is definitely one of the most valuable commodities that you could have in this kind of venture. um, and there's only one way of gaining that. You have to have some patience. You have to go down into trenches and work on some projects. Unfortunately, there's no short way through that. Um, there's definitely a lot of options there, a lot of ways that you can solve a problem, but yeah, it's hard to just go to get a developer and say, solve this for me without having this particular uh, subject matter knowledge that you need, because there's many ways to cook an egg, but not all of them taste the same. Let's say that. And you just have to hit the right spices so that you solve the particular problem that you have in front of you. Uh, I'd like to think that that we always have the answers and you should always call us back, but matter of fact is that there's definitely things that we're good at, things that might not be so good at, but we can get really good at them really quickly. And yeah, it would really depend on the kind of problem that you're facing. If you have a problem that is highly technical, highly design dependent, then we're probably the right people. If you've got a problem about networking databases, I'm sure there's probably people who are much better than us at it. And you know, but the best thing that you can do is reach out and start the discussion. And we're always clear with our clients, and we always try to be fair and direct, and try to solve the problem if we can. Uh, Provide alternatives and suggestions if we cannot. But usually we're always in the first pile. So far, we've got a good track record of solving a lot of problems, I would say.
Mhm.
What do you think, Harsh?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to the answer to what you're saying. Mayur. One part is for, I guess, companies, AEC architecture firms looking for consultants that solve problems. Do you hire someone like Reope, or do you hire a more, I guess, proper software development consultancy, right? On that front, I completely agree with Dimitar that there are things that we are good at which revolve around very domain specific problems. Even though we are legitimate full stack software developers, most of us, we our real value or real value add comes because we really understand your problems, right? So if you have a workflow related problem in your daily job, then you hire us, not the software guys. But say, for example, you need to do a company wide IT solution that is related to managing emails across your firm, then it would not really make sense to hire Reope, right? You don't need domain specific knowledge there. And so I would say there's one major benefit in the domain beyond the domain specific thing as well, which is that because we all kind of grew up in this hacker mentality, which may not be the best for actually creating long term scalable software, but is really, really good at prototyping. And so we can at least find the problem or find what the real good solution is much more quickly than somebody who'll go away for a few months and come back with a fully fledged built tool or even a prototype that's maybe coded. We can get you an answer in a day compared to those guys. But again, it really depends if the problem is something that we would be better at because it's a domain specific one. As far as the part, if you're a say you're a student and you're figuring out should I go and learn proper software development or should I go join an architecture firm and do a project and actually learn how the industry works? I would say the answer is actually yes. Do both at the same time. But
Hey, you're young. You don't really need sleep. Just
um, I mean, you can do it's a lucky position to be in if you can do both, actually, right? But in in my perspective, at least, and in my experience, I got really lucky because of that. Because very often it maybe takes 4 or 5 years to see a project through in architecture. The project I was able to work at took a year, but that gives you domain knowledge about actually what it takes to build a building, which most software developers don't have. Um, but on the other hand, if you're able to think technologically and you can actually start developing your skills through a project, it will give you a much more grounded approach. But it doesn't make sense to just do architecture if you are interested in going out of that field. If you want to be an architect, then 100% do what's best. But if you are interested in zooming out, doing technology, doing programming, then keep at it while you are learning about the industry and the projects.
yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about the the kind of problems and the kinds of solutions that you can delve into, and passion is a huge factor because when you're dealing with a problem over and over during your daily work life, you feel really passionate about solving it, and I think that's really important because that's one of the ingredients for a good solution. Definitely, you have to be passionate about the things that you're trying to solve. It's much easier to have a well-defined problem that you're familiar with and come up with a good solution with that than invent something from scratch. And, though sometimes people get lucky and wonderful things come out of nothing. Usually that's not the case. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Got it. And before we move on to the project, like I have one last question about what's your advice for hacking the learning for programming and software development. So like
Yeah,
could be hackathon or whatever. What's your uh,
yeah. And I
recipe?
think Dimitar is one of the fastest learners I have ever met in my life. So I'm not to hype Dimitar up, but I'm curious to know what his answer is.
Again, it kind of comes down to passion. Do what you're passionate doing. Like if hackathons are your thing, I think that's wonderful. There's a lot of conferences where there's uh, unique opportunities for knowledge sharing as well. I don't really have a preference. I'm kind of up for anything kind of guy. Uh, I haven't really done much hackathons uh, in my day. And then once you have once you have a family and kids, it's a little hard to do like 24-hour or 48-hour hackathons. So that's something to consider. If you can do hackathons, do them because they're a ton of fun. Definitely. That's my tip.
But how would you
Yeah.
process like approach learning a new thing? Like do courses online or like what's your approach?
Um, that's an incredibly personal kind of thing. I would say.
Okay.
Um,
You don't need to
I,
answer, but
no. I think there's a personal approach to it because my personal approach is just to submerge myself with the with a particular case. Just if you have like a uh, repo console that you could just open like a Python or JavaScript or something and just open and start typing. And, just throw code at the wall and see what sticks. That can be incredibly powerful because over time we tend to make a lot of relational connections and hey, this is kind of similar to that thing, and that thing is kind of similar to that thing, and then you have this growing tree of knowledge that starts as a seed and then expands, and you've got these branches that connect to previous memories and previous experiences, and that definitely helps learning something new, I think. And again, that doesn't come instantly. You just have to be patient and stubborn about things sometimes, and keep going. Stay
Yeah.
got it.
calm and carry on.
Yeah, and I
Harsh,
think
what's your recipe?
I definitely think the passion part is super important. If you're working on a problem that is actually important to you, you will push through and learn how to solve the problem. Because very often, what happens, especially when you're maybe early in learning programming or learning a brand new concept in the domain of computer science, uh, it is a big learning curve at first, and then over time it gets easier. But to actually make that leap, and or I guess climb that hill that is the steepest, it takes passion. It takes that determination and grit to actually be able to get there. And so, actually being interested in what you're learning, maybe not because of the programming part itself, but because of what it can get you to do, is the most important. And the second part that's helped me a lot, for sure, is having or finding people around you who are able to easily unblock you. Very often, some people are really, really good at getting unblocked by themselves, just figuring things out on their own. I think most people are not. I'm not one of those people. And so I've had the luck of having friends or coworkers who have been better or more ahead in their careers than I have been. And I've always shamelessly asked them to unblock me when I feel as though I'm blocked. And I think being that shameless person, actually asking those people for help on on even something that might make you look a little stupid, is usually a good idea. And I think Dimitar has been one of those people in my life so far.
uh, yeah, that's definitely a nice environment. If you can join an environment of, and it doesn't have to be a physical environment. It doesn't have to be like, hey, join Reope because we're amazing. You could join like a forum or a community, like the Dynamo community or like the Grasshopper community. There's so many people who are really dedicated to share their knowledge and help each other, and I think that's pretty magical. And we're in an age of sharing because 10 years ago we didn't really have these kinds of communities, or as many of these communities. 20 years ago we didn't really even have much internet. So yeah, things are improving in that regard, and I think that knowledge is just going to keep accelerating, and you know more wonderful things are ahead of us in that.
That's,
Yeah.
no, that's great. Yeah, so never be afraid to ask questions either to your colleagues, forums, or wherever your support ecosystem is. So,
Yeah.
so Harsh, can you show us like some of the projects you're working at Reope, the process?
Yeah, for sure. I think let me share my screen with you guys real quick, and maybe we can talk about a couple of things. I think the first thing I actually want to share with everyone is who we actually are at Reope. So if you go to reope.com, um, we are a group of 10 people now who are just incredible programmers, architects, Revit people, all kinds of talent. And we basically work every day on projects, consulting with clients. And effectively, this is what actually makes us unique. Um, Everybody has a different skill set and a different strength, and we bring it together to actually support people more so than one person with a specific skill set could. Um, we kind of are primarily a consulting agency. So we do a lot of projects with clients, and you can go, I won't go through each of our projects. You can see them for yourself whenever, if you're interested. But essentially, that's our magic recipe. We take really, really good people and put them on projects together and see the magic happen. The one thing that I want to show you from my end is the product that we have been working on for the better part of the last year, which is this product called Anker. And this was actually good timing because we just made Anker public and released it this Monday or Tuesday. And Anker is kind of the big thing from the big push that we've been doing. And I guess to give you a small backstory before I actually show you guys what Anker does, is in our consulting projects over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been hired pretty frequently to kind of solve the same problem, and we solve it in very similar ways. And this problem emerges from a very specific condition that's happening in Scandinavia, especially. But I think it's going to be global, or already is becoming global, which is how do you manage model data? How do you manage model metadata? And how do you deliver models to clients that are high quality, that they can use for construction, they can use for facility management, and they can use through the life cycle of the building? What we noticed was that architects were and design teams and project teams were really struggling to input high quality metadata property information on models. There was always spelling errors, some property was missing, and there was no real way of checking all of this data either. And so we started going in as consultants, as people who knew Dynamo and C Sharp, and building add-ins and Dynamo scripts that connected to Excel or connected to different databases, so that you could actually have a little bit more control over properties, say across 10 or 12 Revit files. But then we realized that we're building the same things again and again for different clients. And so we decided to take a step back and just build I guess, product that solves it for everyone. And that is Anker. So in a way, we are making our services less valuable with Anker, but we really think it's important to have something out there that's able to manage data in a better way. And so what Anker basically is it's a database on the web that links to all of the design platforms that you use. It connects to Revit, it connects to Tekla, it connects to Archicad, Rhino, whatever you need. And it's one place where we store and manage all of your properties. So if you use Revit, for example, you've seen the properties panel. You use Rhino, you've got a properties panel. Every design application has a properties panel. Anker, it brings that all into one place.
It's all
And
the same.
so far, and what we're doing with one place is we are then able to help you manage the data in a much more effective way. You can automate the creation of this data using Anker, and you can actually see all of the data from all of your BIM files in a single place. So I'm not going to yabber on too long with this, and I'm actually going to show you what it is. Right now, we are in a beta period, so Anchor is ready for people to use, but it's not open, so you can't go and hit sign up and get it today. You can reach out though, and I will send you an installer and have you and get you set up. But this is Anchor. This is how it looks today. It's currently a web interface, and it's a web interface with projects that are connected to real files that project teams are working on. So if I look at this project here called DG13, I can actually see that it's connected to these three Revit files. And so whenever somebody syncs in Revit, it uploads all of that data from Revit into our database in Anchor. And you can actually manage all of the Revit data here. And so over here, if I look at Anchor, there's a few different tabs. The main one that I'm going to focus on is this thing called Anchor Tables. What this basically is trying to do is, I don't know if people have used Airtable or Notion tables or even are like Excel experts. This is that functionality, but in the web and connected to Revit or connected to your BIM application. And how tables work is I can basically create these filtered views similar to Revit schedules, similar to any kind of filtering on BIM data. If people have used the filter element corrector in Revit, it's a similar idea. You can create this filtered view just by setting up these really basic filters and actually see your BIM data come in those categories. So here I have this table, for example, that is walls, which is a set of simple filters, which is just where my Revit category is wall, and I just want the instance objects, not the type objects. And I get this big table with all of the different properties that are coming directly from Revit. So as you can see, I have about 4,000 walls in these three files combined, and I have a bunch of these properties. These properties are unfortunately in Norwegian, but you can imagine similar ones being also in English. And in Anchor, I can then very easily modify properties. I can just go here and I can say, okay, I need this property on this wall to be 55 for some reason. And now I have updated the property on 3,800 walls across three files with one click. I can also take it a step further to manage these properties. I can go in here and I can actually go to the Automate tab, which is, I think, one of our favorite tabs in Anchor that we've built, which basically takes our ethos of Dynamo and automation and bad monkeys and applies it to Anchor, where I can go in here and I have these two simple columns, when and then. So when something is the case, I set something else. So when category is wall, I want this property to equal 45 minutes. And if I just run this, Anchor will take a second, it'll run it in the background. And if I go back to my table now, I can see that this property on all my walls is 45 minutes. So I can start setting up more and more complex workflows here. You can connect properties of one elements to properties from types and things that are nearby. And there's all kinds of different aspects that you can automate. But at its most core level is when there's a condition being met, set this data in this way. And lastly, once you do all of this, you can actually also see this directly in Revit. So we've built a Revit add-in that brings all of this data from Anchor to be manageable and viewable in Revit. So I have one of these files open that you saw on Anchor here. And Anchor basically has these, sorry, it's all the way there, has these two tabs, properties and tables. Properties works exactly like the Revit properties panel. I select something in Revit and I have a bunch of properties. I can see who's updated it. I can see which file it's coming from. I can see a bunch of Revit properties and I can see a bunch of Anchor properties as well, all in one place. The other thing I can do is actually open the Anchor tables as well in Revit. And this is probably my favorite feature that we've built in our Revit integration, which is I have these tables that are live linked to my Revit model. I can maybe go to the floors table and things are grouped here. So I have 681 floors. I select this row and boom, it selects everything that it links to this Revit model. And I can actually have multiple Revit models open at the same time, and Anchor will connect to all of them and select everything everywhere. So this is the, I guess, main part where you manage data in Anchor. You actually set up your project data correctly. And we're building some additional things that actually aren't in the UI yet, but we have it scripted in the backend, which works to automate and automate the verification of this data. So right now, what you would do is, as an architect, is you'd go here and you'd see that there's wall data, and maybe there should be a dash here instead of a space, and you have to check it manually with your own eyes. but we're actually building these automation routines that, based on a bunch of rules, can tell you what is right and what is wrong. So when you deliver the data to the client, you can be sure that it's actually right. And lastly, we have basically set up Anker to be able to export this data to IFC. So what Anker does is when you export data from Revit to IFC, which is your native export, usually you export from Revit to IFC, Anker picks it up, puts it on the database, populates all the properties and make sure the IFC is correct, and gives you back a valid IFC file. So that way you can actually deliver data from Anker to your client. We're also working on importing IFCs, and we're going to keep adding more and more applications here. Right now, we have only built Revit and IFC integrations, but we have the base structure set up. So it's not long before we'll have other applications also integrated with Anker.
Great product, guys. Love it. So, I'm curious, like, is the model stored on cloud and then Anchor is acting by bidirectional communication? Or, like, if you can express like the data workflow or like a full stack journey of this application.
Yeah, I guess I should have had made some diagrams for this call, but I don't have anything concrete to show, so I'll just try and describe it. Basically, we store all of the model data. So when you open Revit and you connect your model to Anker through the setup tab, we will take all that data and push it to a database in the cloud. We don't store the geometry because we're only working with properties and metadata, but we take all your properties and push them to the cloud. And once it's there, you can manage it, you can change it. And whenever you sync in Revit, so you make some changes and you hit sync, we update the database.
So it's making
Is
cloud calls. What are the new properties modified in your web interface?
exactly. Yeah.
I would say it's more about freeing the data from the particular software, be it Revit or Rhino or Tekla, and making it near instantaneous and accessible for everyone. Easier to share, easier to view. You don't even have to have Revit to see your current project data, which is which can be incredibly empowering, uh, especially for building owners or contractors that have to deal with many files and many projects at the same time. Uh, it gives you a wonderful overview. It's freeing in a way.
Got it. And in the web interface, are you like syncing Revit properties every time someone saves the model, or like I'm imagining what if there is a case where I uploaded the model to cloud, I made some changes in properties, then your web interface made some changes in the same property. Like, how is the conflict managed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we took a, I guess, philosophical decision that the ownership of properties that, say, for example, Revit creates that are very strongly tied to how Revit works, like the width of a wall, we will not allow the user to modify in Anchor because that is something that Revit should have ownership over. It comes to when it comes to all the metadata or something. Say, for example, you need a bunch of contractual information on an element in BIM, or you need to talk about where it's coming from, say specifications for some wall or window or some new piece of the building. That kind of stuff is what we are allowing you to modify in Anchor, and that all lives and is owned by Anchor. So when I'm in Revit and I say I'm changing something here, say in this Anchor properties window, it's near the screen. Say I'm here and I change a property in the Anchor properties window. This immediately uploads it to the cloud. So this is live linked to our database here. But when you're working in Revit and you change something out here, say you change the top constraint of a wall, that is a very strongly linked property that you cannot actually modify in Anchor. When you sync, you'll just see it update in the Anchor UI. So you can filter by it. You can find other things based on those properties. Say, give me everything on level 10, right? But we're not letting you modify it for those two reasons that you actually picked up on. One is the conflicts that might occur when you have multiple people working together, and the other part is we don't actually want to modify things that are critical to the working of design applications.
Got it. It makes a lot of sense. And I was thinking about your automate workflow. Sounds like very similar to IFFT. And I was thinking, can we write like a webhook where, okay, if the building has reduced in total area, then I get a message, oh, someone has made big changes in a Revit model.
Yeah. We've been having some super fun discussions exactly along the lines of what you said. So right now it's kind of a dumb automation in the sense that you set up something and you run it, but we have set it up in a way that very soon you should be able to have all kinds of webhooks connected to your automations. So, for example, one thing that BIM managers very often track on projects is the number of LOD elements. I have LOD 100 elements here, LOD 200 elements here, and moment they can set up notification systems where, say, for example, the moment the number of LOD 200 elements exceeds a certain threshold, the whole team gets an email or you get a notification of some kind. So all these kinds of automations related to webhooks and events in the model informing the team on different things happening, we are actually working on. I think one of the biggest promises of automation is, at least here in Norway, architects have to put in a bunch of contractual information on every element based on different aspects. Which file is it coming from? What kind of element is it? Our goal is to actually automate that part, where the moment you draw a wall in Revit, it automatically gets all the data that it needs without you ever having to actually add any properties.
Hmm.
That would be like huge time saver. And I was thinking like, are there any like data visualization things you plan to have in your web UI, or like it's not uh, the scope you're looking for?
You can show them colors.
Yeah, we started the small piece, which is like if anchors in beta, colors is in alpha, I would say. But we started a small piece called coloring that basically goes in and gives each row a different color based on what groups it is a part of. So, say for example, now every category has a different color. This is one small visualization piece we did. It's not as impressive in the web UI actually. It's much more impressive in Revit because it will go ahead and let's see. Let me go to all categories,
It's really
and it
helpful to
really
have a more specific table. Like if you have a table with fewer elements, so that because right now we're grouping by category, so it's literally going to color each category in a unique color. But
hmm,
um, yeah, maybe
go to
just
floors.
yeah.
Yeah, that's. But I guess it's only going to color them once, so that's why I want to color something a little bit. But let's do it. Let's color this, and what we'll do is go ahead and color all my floors in Revit for me. And so if I try the more complex one that is likely to break at this point, I'm just
Oh, it's
gonna,
gonna definitely work.
yeah,
No one
coloring
super.
is unhappy with the more complex one. But point
Joke.
being that this is one very basic visualization we've set up now, which is you can actually visualize your model based on data. But our plan is to have a bunch of other things. For now, I think we're going to start by outsourcing this visualization to some platform that's built for it, like Power BI or Metabase, or
Mhm.
there's a whole bunch of them out there. So giving access to those to the BIM data to those platforms
Yeah.
through Anker. But eventually, we want to bring a bunch of that in house as well. So you
Mhm.
actually open up your day, go to anchor.com, and find a whole bunch of different dashboards and charts about how your model is performing.
Yeah. I think the beauty is that it gives us access both to a microscopic view. We could look at specific elements and specific properties and group very in a very fine grained way. But it exposes, aggregates data and exposes uh, like webhooks and other mediums to pull specific groups of data, and then that is gonna definitely make visualizing it in a platform like Power BI or Metabase much more easier than if you actually have to open 20 or 30 Revit models and then read the properties from there and then try to aggregate that. And it again, it's just another way of automating things and making things easier. It opens up a lot of new possibilities that we didn't even have before. I think that's one of the magical things about Anchor.
Yeah, and since you guys are collecting the metadata, like it's also the data is very compact and like efficient. So if I want to do project comparisons or location based various project, like it's easier than like getting my whole geometry. Like I only care about the data I want to compare and contrast.
Yeah. And that's kind of what our goal was with Anchor. It is built for and works really well on large complex projects. So if you the project that we have the most experience on is actually the new government headquarters in Norway. And here they've got 15 Revit files, 5 Tekla files, 2 ArchiCAD files, something coming from an engineer that's CAD from the old days. There's all of this complexity on this huge project with probably 1 to 2 million individual elements. And the idea is that you need one place to be able to actually make sense of all of this stuff.
Yeah,
And we built it specifically to be extremely lightweight and performant so that you can actually work with that much data in one place.
yeah, definitely. Think about that. If you have 20 additional properties and you've got millions of elements, that quickly gets huge. And even if you're working on something like Kobe or the new Norway project delivery system, where you have to have these 20 or 30 elements parameters filled in on each element, it's not something that you can do in Revit. Like you can't just place a wall and then automatically fill 20 parameters. That's going to get annoying first. But if you could place a wall and then the cloud does the information population for you, that's you break down the problem into smaller chunks and you portion it, ration it for each system. So it reduces the overhead of that amount of data and that amount of data population. That makes sense.
Got, got it. Yeah, like I think this is great. My last question on this project would be like, what was the most challenging aspect in developing this tool?
I guess we had quite a few ones, so maybe I'll give you my top three instead, because I can't pick one. The one of the biggest ones, as we just spoke about, is the data. As Dimitar rightly mentioned, sure, we support 2 million elements, but the moment you add 40 properties to them, that's 40 million parameters. That's a lot of data. And so we actually, to get the Anchor to be performant with so much data, and it's all live, right? If anybody makes if Dimitar goes in right now and makes a modification to his property, I will see it on Anchor because it's all live linked to each other. So to have this much data and have it all be live was a huge challenge. And to be sure that we can actually scale this tomorrow if we need to. If we get 10 projects using it together, will we actually be able to, will it trap out or will it actually work? And we have to make sure that it'll actually work. The other piece was actually something that Dimitar can talk more about, I would say, but is the integration between your design software and the web. For example, actually having Anchor live linked and talking to Revit. That was fairly challenging. We've done quite a few things that I don't think I have seen happen before to make this work, where this window that you see here is going to work with Revit Tekla ArchiCAD at the same time. You just need one Anchor window open and it'll talk directly in a live streaming way to all your applications. And this was also pretty challenging to set up.
I think the kudos has to go to our colleague Salim there, who's
100%.
who
I
made
would
it all, who made it all happen. That kind of messaging between different uh, sources and softwares and destinations, and it all just working in the background. It's completely abstracted from the end user, so you don't have to worry about anything. You just turn it on, you open up your Anchor dialog, and it's there. So yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a learning, a huge learning experience, and it's something that um, it's a process of developing these the tools that keeps evolving as we make them and as we try new things and learn new things, and yeah.
And then you can form correlations the next time you solve a problem.
Yeah, we have reached a point where there's things where, hey, we've faced this problem before, we can try to take it from here and then adapt it to the new situation, and then that's definitely sped up some of the new solutions that we've introduced. Again, it comes down to experience. you, you, you gotta make some mistakes and learn from them.
Mhm.
And, yeah, it's been wonderful so far. Broadening my horizons personally about web technologies and the possibilities that we have
Yeah.
uh, with them.
And just to piggyback off one thing that I should have mentioned from the start, these hard problems I have definitely not solved, and Dimitar has solved some of them, but a big chunk of them have been solved by our colleague Salim, who is he's kind of the main guy actually solving these performance issues and making sure that the whole system is up and running and working correctly. And mostly Dimitar and I are helping him out with those issues, but the biggest kudos goes to him.
Yeah, he's
You
our man.
mentioned about three problems, and what is the third?
Oh
Like
yeah,
three challenges.
I would the third thing that we actually were figuring out that was also challenging, but this was very early on, which is why I didn't mention it, was the data model be an anchor, because we wanted it to be so dumb and simple that any application can work with it. We just need complex translators, but the data model itself has to be so generic that it just works wherever. And that took a few iterations for us to actually get it right. And so, actually making the anchor schema, as you would call it, uh, be super generic and interoperable with any application, that was a pretty challenging thing in the start for us.
Definitely, that's a very important piece of the puzzle. It's the KISS principle, keep it sweet and simple.
Mhm.
Definitely pays off once you start scaling things. And again, that's a learning process for our industry because we just haven't tried to scale things yet. We're still doing baby steps in this field. Um, just recently we had a huge rant on Twitter about the problems of IFC, and then I think one of the big problems of IFC is that it's really hard to scale IFC with large projects. The files, the amounts of processing that you need for those files, we're definitely hit that barrier many times in the last months when we just try to pull out information. And of course, that's not just an IFC problem. That's also a Revit or an Archi cat problem where you try to get your information out of the software or out of the medium, and the problem here is that the medium was never designed for you to pull out that amount of information out in an easy way, easy and straightforward way.
Mhm.
So I would say that's problem number four.
Nice. And
I
Or
what
see.
was
Sorry, Mayur,
sorry,
you were
like
saying something.
yeah, I was just reading one like article on I think Speckle where like IFC takes the maximum approach of getting all the geometry and Speckle takes the minimum approach only taking parameters which is necessary. So in one tweet I read the other day is like in future we might see more data structure and data schema customized by the like from the profession rather than industry specified standards for efficiency, so
yeah,
kind of connects. Yeah.
I think that the IFC schema is it's good. It's a good schema. If we started over, we would most likely come to the same conclusion, to the same solution. It's just that it's too. Sometimes it can be too specific, and a more minimalist approach just gives you the chance to be more agile, to change, to adapt these more easily to these problems. And yeah, things solutions like Speckle, solutions like Hypar, where they try to solve the problem in a new way. Um, they're wonderful. It's wonderful to give that a try and see if it helps you do your work better.
Mhm.
Or Anker, we would love to have you as well. Um, we shouldn't. Standardization is nice, but it should be pushed no more. It's good to be pushed, but not so much that it should be the limiting factor of uh, things.
Got it. And what was the approximate time it took to develop this?
It's Little bit tricky to answer. So we've been working on this since last summer, I would say maybe June. But it's not that we've been working on it full time. We are still a consultancy as our primary business. And so I would say whenever we've had some downtime or we've been a little bored with doing the same Revit add-in again, we've spent some time on Anchor. But it's been a bit of a mix. So it's been about 9 months now, but it's been very much on the free time that we've had internally.
I would say jokingly, pulling a number out of thin air, 1 million man hours, 99% of which came from Salim. really, really dedicated about to.
Maybe if we have like BIM automation tool, like they track how many hours you spend on a particular project, then you'll have exact man hours.
That's
Yeah,
coming to Anchor in 2023.
we need we need an app for your Apple Watch or something where it tracks the number of keystrokes that you've done or something like that. It will be a fun metric.
Cool. I think it might be a good time to see some demo from Dimitar.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
stop hogging the screen.
Saving the best for last. Let's see. I don't think it's going to be as impressive as what you've seen so far, but let's give it a try. Um, at the end of the day, we don't always. Um, I mean, you don't just work on the big problems. Sometimes you just have to focus on the smaller, lower hanging fruits. Try to solve the problems that are going to maximize the return of effort and return of investment that you do. And we have a lot of these little tools that we do with our colleagues. And we decided, hey, why don't we start packaging these little tools or toolets or little, let's say, effort multiplicators into a package, and we started something called Toolbox. And it's actually some we started calling it your tools because we really wanted to make the tools for you, and it should be something that you can customize completely so that you could turn them on and off. And let's see if it's gonna work. You can enable and disable the parts that you want, and then like customize it to your own needs. So, for example, I can hide the toolbar that I don't want, or the specific tool that I don't want to use here, and make your own toolbox in a way. And we you, we try to get the most general problems or the most common problems that our client have, and then generalize them so that they're easily accessible for all of our users. And we have we try to push this subscription. You could just get a really reasonable subscription and get access to a lot of these little tools, and have them help you on your daily work. And a lovely tool that our colleague Vegger started is this color parameters tool example, and it's really about just helping you visualize the state of your project. And again, it's something that you could probably do with, let's say, schedules, but you can't really color. It's just so much easier to see things visually when, let's say, you color them and you start selecting them and interacting with them real time. And that's not something that you could easily do otherwise. So, for example, here I'm visualizing all of the different types of windows that I have in my project. Each type is represented by a different color, and I can, let's say, select them all, or I could hide them and start changing colors and just have a friendlier approach to model management and verification, let's say, because maybe I want to I could give a custom color to each of these windows, and let's say, do I have any of these red windows that probably I want to get rid of this type and replace them with a different type, so I can really quickly see, okay, so these guys, they don't really need to be this type, or they don't really need to have this parameter. Maybe I could do some area checking or similar to quickly get the area of my windows. Okay, so do I have any windows that are bigger than or smaller than 30 square feet in this case? Not sure why we're in feet, but I can quickly see the problem windows and make a correction. And another very similar tool is the material viewer or material goggles that we have. And this one is more about, so materials are kind of like parameters, but unfortunately in Revit, we can't really access materials the same way as parameters. There's probably 10 different ways that you could set a material in Revit. You could set it in the layers of the wall or the floor. You could set it in the family. You could set it in the object styles dialog. You can set it in the MEP type. And you really need to have a more consistent way of accessing your materials. And, this is in a way to, this is a quick way to visualize all of the different materials that you have in your project. And again, it's just a way you could select them and you can paint them and quickly just get a visual idea of what you're currently using in your project, and if everything is correct or as expected. And these tools quickly just try to accelerate your day-to-day work. This is another little fun one that I made. It's just about getting a better idea of what dealing with your selections. Like, for example, everybody uses the selection filter on a daily basis, but it's mono. That means it's blocking your Revit. So while I have this open, I can't do anything else with Revit, which I think is incredibly frustrating. And so I just made a little tool here that, almost instantly reacts to my selection, and I can quickly get rid of the things that I don't want, or maybe I only want to select my windows, and just work with Revit better, faster, and more efficiently. I think that's what all of these little tools try to do. I don't think we have the time to go through each of the tools. Another wonderful tool to mention is Radar, which is, again, something that Salim had a huge input, because he made this lovely dashboard for us that tries to itemize the state of your Revit model and then monitor it as you go between revisions of the model. So I don't really have a lot of snapshots of these models. So again, this is something that gets saved every time you synchronize or save your model. And it's something that helps you track the progression and the state of your deliverables, because it can report some general information of the model. It can report some statistics on the size of the model and the amount of model in place families. And I think we've seen a lot recently where people try to pull information out of Revit with Dynamo and other tools, and then try to visualize it in something like Power BI. And I guess this is in a similar way, aggregating that information, but it's trying to make it a little bit more accessible, I would say. I think that a lot of people, when they see the beautiful charts and the bars and line graphs in Power BI, you can easily lose the relationship between those beautiful graphs and what's actually happening in your Revit file. And then if you could break it down into more specifics, that could be really helpful. Though I would say we need a better sample for this. I don't have one right now. We've got another tool here, a little tool that helps you work with scope boxes a little bit better. And again, it's non-modal, so that means you can keep working in Revit while you make these changes. And a lot of our clients use scope boxes to define the design scope. Basically just using the tools that it was intended. And what this does is when you have literally hundreds of these scope boxes in a large file, you can very easily see if they have the right extents, if they follow the right naming, and then just isolate one of that or two of those scope boxes out of the hundreds, and select it, edit it, tweak it. Let's say I increase this to the full height of the building. I'm just it's going to give me an update of the elevation, and I can use that as a quick reference to manage my project design scope better. And another little tool that builds up on that is the views and sheets by scope boxes, which we recently added a functionality a few months ago in collaboration with Heatherwick Studios, which have been a wonderful client to work with. And the idea is that you would select one or more scope boxes and then have different views they want to put on sheets automatically, and that would give you the option to set particular view types and view templates for these new views, and then give specific numbering on the view sheets, and even offset and position the sheets for you. Maybe set some sheet parameters on your resulting views. And it's giving you the feedback in real time while Revit is currently frozen. And let's see if we got some lovely sheets to show off here. Well, wow, that's a tiny view for such a huge sheet. Should have planned that better. But it's wonderful. Like, for example, let's say you have all of these view sections and elevations that you want to do on it's personally, doing this manually, like the process of drawing section views and then dragging them from the project browser to the sheet is an incredibly frustrating thing to do on a daily basis. So if you could just click a few buttons and have that ready for you in a few seconds, it's a wonderful productivity booster. I think that's enough on the Revit side. Maybe we can have a look at some of the Rhino work that actually Harsh did, or Harsh started, and I've been helping him with here and there. It's something called Metrics for Rhino, and it's just close this. You don't need that long. And the idea is that it's trying to make Rhino more parametric, more schedulable, easier to schedule, easier to automate in a way as well. Because when you're making these beautiful designs, as much as we want to just have an open canvas that we draw on and have a creative freedom, there's a real life concerns and real life goals that we have to meet, let's say wise or cost wise, and a tool like this is wonderful to help with that. Let's just see if I got it to work though. Am I missing some parameters here? Not really. Let's see. Maybe I can assign some. Maybe cost and program. That's a wonderful one. No, I'm gonna give this a refresh. Sorry about that, guys.
You have too heavy software running in background. So.
Yeah, I think it's just been running in the background and doing its own thing for too long. I had it set up yesterday, and I don't know what happened with it. Okay, let's see if that's better. I'm trying to get the old data to refresh and open up our little parameters dialog. There we go. Now it's behaving. And you see how we've got our little budget here per floor, let's say, and our program. So this is going to be the office tower, and this is going to be the housing or residential tower, and this is going to be the retail center. And you can then add more parameters here. Let's increase our budget here for the tower, and I'm gonna dice it up into floors, and then bake those. And then each of those floors are gonna inherit the tower's budget and program, and then you can quickly visualize by the uh, program, let's say, and get a quick visual update of the state of your design. And I'm sure that the sky is the limit here, and you even have some functionality that it can do formulas. So, for example, cost. Let's see. So it was doing the area times the budget. So if I select this, why is my parameters disappearing? Well, the idea is that you should be able to select this and then quickly get an idea of the costs of, let's say, this floor and or similar. But for some reason, it's misbehaving to me. For me, we very recently went through a big revision on this, and it seems like there's something that we've missed. But when it works wonderfully.
And maybe I can quickly say a little bit about the background of why we built this tool. This actually is also with Heatherwick Studio, and they reached out to us kind of with this issue that I think a lot of architecture firms face, which is they have a lot of really great Grasshopper scripts that do the exact same thing. What metrics does and calculating areas and this kind of information you can do pretty easily with Grasshopper. But the problem is a lot of designers, I would say 80% in most firms, are not comfortable opening that Grasshopper environment. Actually, moving sliders around and looking at data that way is not something people intuitively or comfortably do. And so their challenge was, how do we actually get this useful workflow to everybody on in the team? And our answer with them was that we built a nice UI, a nice add-in for Rhino, that you can actually just do it in a very straightforward way, get the basic data that you need for a project in a straightforward way. And that's kind of the way we've been working with a lot of architects in the sense that we've been taking the existing workflows from Dynamo or Grasshopper and finding new ways to do them in an easier way using add-ins or web tools or other applications, basically.
Got it. And I must say, like, great plugins, and like it was a great demo, Dimitar. I was thinking, so you covered geometry filtering, geometry visualization, sheets production. Like, is there any other architecture workflow which is unproductive and you haven't developed the plugin?
Um, I'm sure there are endless possibilities out there, and yeah, I mean, we tend to think that, oh, this is the old way of doing things, and the old way is always worse. And it's you shouldn't be too quick to judge. Uh, you should always evaluate and discuss and figure out, why have things been done this way? Why the what are the requirements that we need to fulfill when we do things? So you can't just assume, oh, this is too tedious, we should never do it this way, and we should automate everything. Usually there's good reasons behind everything, and things evolve in such a way for a reason. So, but there's always possibilities that to do things better. There's always reasons you should try new things, but you should, of course, study the existing procedure carefully, and try not to miss anything when you automate these tasks, I would
And
say.
I would also say in our case, the what is still out there is a question that I don't have an answer to. But the things that we've chosen actively not to do is not because they've been hard, but because somebody else has already done them in a really good or better way than we could have. For example, if you want to get good analysis, there's plenty of great analysis platforms out there. Like there's Pacemaker, there's I think the guys in Atlanta Cove tool, and there's all these different platforms, right? If you want to do good kind of data fetching for context data, terrain, and whatnot, there's also other platforms. So that ArcGIS S3 has some great tools for their on their end as well. So what we decide to actually do is stuff that we think is a gap, something that's missing in people's lives, and things that we know really well. I think amongst our team, the biggest skill is kind of medium to late stage design, places where architects often spend the most time, but is the least built for. And there's a lot of repetitive tasks that you have to do all the time. And so we find all of these new challenges there. And I'm sure we'll keep finding them as we work on these projects as well, especially when now a lot of people are switching from 3D modeling for drawings to 3D modeling for databases, like 3D modeling for the model itself and not the actual printout that you get from it. And once you switch this way of working, I'm sure a whole bunch of other problems will show up because today's tools are not really built for that.
Let me just
That's
add,
great.
like, we've been doing this for over a year, and we still haven't run out of things to do. So yeah, I don't think anytime soon. We've been giving it our best, but the problems keep coming.
That's what keeping you excited the next morning. There's always a new problem to solve. Yeah. So I had one question. So you mentioned about when you were doing the scope tool or visualization, like it was creating a separate, like the Revit workflow is not affected and one can do it parallelly. So are you like creating another thread on CPU and like doing it? Like how did you engineer that?
Um, so we always have to do. We always have to make the plugins, adapt the plugins to the specific requirements and limitations of the platform that we're working with. And Revit is in particular is notoriously single-threaded when you want to access the backend database, and we have to work around that uh, with the endpoints that the API provides. So, for in this particular case, whenever you're doing a non-model solution, you have to work with things like external events, where you basically have to you tell Revit, hey, do this thing, and then as soon as Revit can do it, it's just going to do it for you, and it uh, gives you the appearance of multi-threadedness, but at the end of the day, it's just what the API was designed to do.
Got it. Uh, I like it's we have crossed the 1 hour mark, so I'm gonna wrap up the interview with like few uh questions on rapid fire questions. So you gotta keep it very brief. Uh,
Yeah, all right.
let's see.
Get some water before this.
So first segment is I'll say terms and you guys need to answer bullish or bearish. So uh, so let's do this. So for example,
Bullish being good and bearish being bad,
yeah,
or okay,
correct.
Yeah.
like terminology.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. So metaverse for AEC.
Bearish.
Bear, very bearish. Uh, you know,
Okay. Uh, Blockchain for AEC.
Bullish.
I'm right in the middle of that one. I think there is potential, but there's also a lot of pitfalls. That
Yeah.
You need to choose one.
okay, I would say very fair. That makes sense.
Okay. AI for AEC.
Bullish.
Definitely bullish there as well.
And I see. And generative design in AEC.
Yeah. I need to ask a clarification with that. Do you mean Autodesk's version of generative design? Because that would be bearish. But as overall, I would say bullish.
Yeah, I would say bullish. We've had generative design in Rhino for so long with Galapagos and so many others models in there, and it's there's so much more that we haven't really that hasn't been exposed to a wide audience. And sorry, I forgot we should be short. So definitely bullish on that one.
Got it. Uh, is there any book or video which made a big impact in your life?
Hmm.
For
It's a
me, I would,
rapid fire, you guys. You
yeah,
have only 10 seconds.
there's two books I would recommend to anybody trying to get into AEC tech, even if you're working in a big architecture company and trying to innovate. It's the Lean Startup. That's the Bible of startups. I think most people in the tech industry know what the Lean Startup is. And the other book, which is a shout out to Peter Mitev, who recommended this to me, is called Inspired. So if you're trying to build a great product and understand how products work, that's a really, really good, almost like a textbook to learn how to actually build a product.
I'm gonna say any book by Terry Pratchett, and not because it's gonna teach you anything in particular, but just because it's fun, and you should have some fun from time to time as well.
Got it. Your role model.
Uh, hmm. You go first.
For mine, it's Dimitar and Salim, these guys that I work with, that
uh,
do some crazy magic every day. It's actually genuinely a pleasure to work with these guys. Sorry, Dimitar, now you have to pick a better answer.
I don't really have a good answer for this. My role model is, yeah, I mean, I can't say that I have a particular person. I think we should have a lot of role models and try to pick the best, in everybody and grab it as much as possible in yourselves.
Okay. You tend uh, to avoid that the question directly, but I get your intent. So, uh, your favorite movie? I'm gonna have easy ones now. Okay.
Mine's going to be Huge. I don't know if anyone has watched this or heard of it before, but it's these guys in these hitmen that have to go to Belgium for some reason.
It's comedic. I don't know. It's so hard to choose. I have so many favorite movies. I don't know. I'm gonna say The Matrix.
Got it.
I
And
haven't seen the new one. I'm pretty excited how that's gonna turn out.
yeah. And are you like a mountain person or a beach person?
Mountain here.
Definitely both.
I
I need
see.
mountains by the beach.
Yeah.
Nice one.
And that was a good way. Is there anything which we didn't cover in this interview and you guys would like to share?
I just want to say one last thing about Anchor, which I should have been a little bit more clear on, maybe, is that right now, because we just made it public, we are releasing, we're looking for people to use it actually, and it's in beta and it's free. And it's probably going to be free to use for the next few months until we actually learn from people as to what they need from the product to make it evolve. So if you're interested in using Anchor, trying Anchor, just shoot me an email or fill the form on our website, and I'll get you set up. And you should be able to use it for free for a few months at least.
Yeah. I would just like to say that I'm terrible at demos because, and I think all of the developers are terrible at demos because usually our systems are set up for in a debug prototyping stage for the new things, and then whenever you're in that stage, it's really hard to switch to production stage where you have the stability. So I hope Homer doesn't get too mad with me for showing things that don't always work.
Isn't that the beauty of a demo when you actually need it to work in bricks?
Yeah, but usually our software is pretty stable and pretty robust. We've got a wonderful. I want to mention another wonderful system that Celine worked on called Doc, which I should have mentioned during the Revit demo. Which basically we upload our code and we have different streams. So we've got our alpha, beta, and production streams, and we upload different versions of our plugins or tools to GitHub, and that gets picked up with webhooks by Doc, and then the next time our users start up Revit, it gets downloaded automatically, and you have this seamless upgrade of all of your tools daily, and it's really really cool. Take my word for it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good CI/CD pipeline for Revit add-ins. I think I haven't seen other ones as good as what we did there.
It's it's amazing. It was Lovely hosting you guys, and like quite inspired by all the work you're doing and your journey. And thanks a lot for sharing all the stories and process behind all of your work.
Thanks for having us, Mayur, and for the pretty interesting and thought-provoking questions.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I need to do a better job of preparing my answers.
We'll we'll have a follow-up call 6 months or a year from now. So we'll have uh, you'll be uh, better prepared then.
Battle tested. Yeah. Sounds.
All right. See you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Mayur. You as well.